The village where a man must marry a virgin, 0130 hook. In a village hidden deep in the Appalachian mountains, there's one rule that decides whether you live in peace or vanish without a trace. Break it, and you don't get a second chance. Daniel Hart was 32 years old when he arrived in Ashford Hollow, a teacher with a gentle smile and a heart full of hope. He came to help. He came to teach children who'd never seen the inside of a real classroom. But what he didn't know was that love in this place came with conditions. Conditions written in blood and enforced by shadows. On a cold October night, Daniel married a woman named Lila May. The ceremony was quiet, almost too quiet. And then, just hours after he said his vows, Daniel disappeared. His jacket was found torn and muddy by the edge of the forest. His phone smashed on the rocks near the creek. But his body? Never found. What happened to Daniel Hart? And why does every man in this village whisper the same warning? Marry only a virgin, or you'll never make it out alive. 133. T's key questions. This isn't folklore. This isn't a ghost story passed down by firelight. This is real. This happened 2 years ago, and the case is still open. Tonight, we're going to walk you through every twist, every lie, every buried secret that led to Daniel's disappearance. Who created this rule? Why does it still control the lives of hundreds of people living in the 21st century? And what really happened the night Daniel Hart vanished? We'll hear from witnesses who were there. We'll see evidence the media never covered. And we'll uncover a truth so disturbing, it'll make you question how far tradition can go before it becomes a trap. Because Daniel wasn't the first man to disappear in Ashford Hollow. He was just the first one people outside the village started asking about. 310 backstory. Character setup. Daniel Hart grew up in Ohio. Regular childhood. Loving parents. A younger sister who adored him. He studied education at a state college, graduated with honors, and spent 2 years teaching in suburban schools before he heard about a volunteer program in rural Appalachia. He wanted to make a difference. That's what his mother told us. That's what his friends remembered. He wasn't running from anything. He was running towards something. A purpose. In the spring of 2022, Daniel packed his life into a duffel bag and drove 9 hours into the mountains. Ashford Hollow wasn't on most maps. Population, 218. No grocery stores. No gas stations. Just dirt roads, wooden homes, and a church at the center of everything. Daniel moved into a small cabin provided by the community outreach program. He taught reading and math to kids who'd never left the county, and for the first few months, everything seemed fine. Better than fine. The people were kind, reserved, but kind. And then he met Lila May. Lila was 28, soft-spoken, brown eyes that seemed to carry a lifetime of sadness. She worked at the church, helping organize donations and cleaning the pews every Sunday. Daniel first saw her during a community dinner. She smiled at him from across the room. That was all it took. They started talking after church services, walks by the creek, quiet conversations under the pine trees. Lila didn't talk much about her past, and Daniel didn't push. He liked that she listened more than she spoke. He liked that she seemed to understand him without words. By summer, they were inseparable. By fall, Daniel told his mother he was in love. But the villagers were watching, and they were whispering. Because in Ashford Hollow, love doesn't come without rules. The tradition is old, older than anyone can remember. Before a man marries, the bride must be examined by the village elders. 3 women, all over 70, who verify that she is, in their words, pure. It sounds medieval. It sounds impossible, but it's real, and it's enforced. Men who marry women who fail this examination are shunned. Their families lose land. Their children are marked. And in some cases, according to rumors no one will confirm on record, those men disappear. Daniel didn't believe it at first. He thought it was symbolic, a relic of the past that people honored but didn't actually follow. But then, 2 weeks before his wedding, a man named Thomas Calloway pulled him aside after church. Thomas was older, maybe 50, with hands rough from years of farm work. He looked Daniel in the eyes and said, "You need to be sure about her." Daniel laughed. He said, "I am sure." Thomas didn't laugh back. He said, "I mean really sure, about everything. Ask her where she lived before here." Daniel went home that night confused. He asked Lila. She said she grew up 2 towns over. Moved to Ashford Hollow when she was 19. Nothing unusual. But Thomas wasn't the only one. Other men started giving Daniel looks. Women stopped talking when he entered a room. And then, one morning, he found a note slipped under his cabin door. It was written in shaky handwriting, like someone was scared to even hold the pen. It said, "She's not what you think. If you marry her, you're a dead man." 10:20. The incident. The crime. Daniel kept the note. He didn't show it to Lila. He didn't want to scare her, but he started asking questions. Quietly, carefully. He asked the pastor if there was anything he should know about Lila's past. The pastor smiled and said, "She's a good woman." He asked one of the older teachers at the school. She looked away and said, "Some people don't want outsiders marrying our girls. That's all this is." But Daniel felt it. The tension. The weight. Like the whole village was holding its breath. 3 days before the wedding, Lila came to his cabin in tears. She said people were talking, saying terrible things. She said they were claiming she wasn't a virgin, that she'd been with someone before, that the elders would find out and the wedding would be called off. Daniel held her. He told her it didn't matter. He said, "I don't care what they say. I love you." But Lila shook her head. She said, "You don't understand. If they think I lied, they'll come for you too." The night before the wedding, Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat on his porch, staring into the dark forest that surrounded the village. The air smelled like rain. Around midnight, he heard footsteps. He stood up, heart pounding. A figure stepped out from the trees. It was Thomas Calloway. He wasn't alone. 2 other men stood behind him, faces hidden in shadow. Thomas said, "We need to talk." Daniel asked what this was about. Thomas said, "You still have time to leave. No one will blame you. Just pack your things and go." Daniel said, "I'm not leaving." Thomas sighed. Then he said something Daniel would never forget. He said, "We tried to warn you. What happens now is on you." Then they turned and walked back into the trees. Daniel stood there for an hour, shaking. But he didn't leave. The wedding took place the next evening. It was small, just a handful of people. Lila wore a simple white dress. Daniel wore the only suit he owned. The pastor spoke quickly, almost nervously. When he said, "You may kiss the bride," there was no applause, just silence. After the ceremony, there was a meal at the church. People ate. No one spoke much. Lila held Daniel's hand under the table. Around 8 p.m., Daniel stepped outside to get some air. Lila stayed inside, talking to one of the older women. That was the last time anyone saw them together. 10 minutes later, one of the twin kids ran into the church, screaming. He said he saw someone running into the forest, someone chasing them. People rushed outside. They called Daniel's name. No answer. They searched the area around the church, found nothing. Then someone spotted it. Daniel's jacket, torn and muddy, lying near the edge of the woods. His phone was a few feet away, screen shattered. But no Daniel. Lila collapsed. She screamed his name over and over. People pulled her back, held her, but she kept screaming. "Where is he? What did you do? What did you do to him?" Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. 2035 to 0 Aftermath and Investigation. The police didn't arrive until 3 days later. Ashford Hollow was remote. The nearest station was 40 miles away, and the village elders didn't call right away. They said they thought Daniel had just run off. Cold feet. It happens. But when the county sheriff finally showed up, he knew something was wrong. Search parties combed the forest for 2 weeks. They used dogs, drones, volunteers from neighboring towns. They found Daniel's shirt caught on a branch half a mile into the woods. They found footprints, but the rain had washed most of them away. They found a shovel leaning against a tree, covered in mud, but no body, no blood, no Daniel. The case made local news, then state news. then national. American teacher vanishes after marrying woman in isolated Appalachian village. The headlines made it sound like a horror movie. Reporters swarmed Ashford Hollow, but the villagers wouldn't talk. Doors stayed shut. Cameras were ignored. The only person who spoke was Leela. She sat in front of the cameras, pale and hollow-eyed, and said, "I don't know what happened. We were happy. We were finally happy. And then he was gone." But the internet didn't believe her. Conspiracy theories exploded online. Some said Lila had lied about her past, and the village punished Daniel for it. Others said Daniel found out something about Lila and tried to run, and she, or someone else, stopped him. A few claimed Daniel faked his own disappearance to escape the marriage. The sheriff's department interviewed everyone in the village. Most people had the same story. "We saw him leave the church. We heard shouting. We don't know what happened after that." But there were inconsistencies. One man said he saw Daniel running toward the forest alone. Another said he saw two people. A woman said she heard a truck engine in the distance that night. But no one could, or would, say more. Lila became the focus of suspicion. Detectives found out that she hadn't been entirely honest about her past. She didn't grow up 2 towns over. She'd lived in a place called Ridgemont, about 60 miles south. And she'd left suddenly, 8 years earlier. "Why did you lie?" they asked her. Lila broke down. She said, "Because I was ashamed. They wanted to know what she was ashamed of." She said, "I was in a relationship. It ended badly. He hurt me. I ran. I came here to start over." The detectives pressed her. Was the relationship physical? Lila hesitated. Then she said, "Yes." That changed everything. Because if Lila wasn't a virgin, and the village knew, then Daniel had broken the one rule that mattered most. And someone may have made him pay for it. Detectives started looking into other men who'd married in Ashford Hollow over the past 20 years. They found 3 cases where men had either left the village suddenly or disappeared. One in 1998. One in 2004. One in 2011. None of those cases had been seriously investigated. The men were outsiders, drifters. No one followed up. But now, with Daniel missing, people started asking questions. What kind of place is this? Who's really in control? And what happens to the men who don't follow the rules? Then, 6 months after Daniel disappeared, a hiker found something. Deep in the woods, miles from the village, a small clearing, and in the center, a rotted wooden hut, barely standing. Inside, they found a watch. Daniel's watch. The one his father had given him before he left for Ashford Hollow. 35-0, 45-0. The twist. Key revelations. The discovery of the watch brought investigators back to Ashford Hollow. This time, they weren't asking. They were demanding answers. The hut belonged to a man named Ezra Cole. He was 74, a retired carpenter, one of the village elders. He'd lived in that clearing for years, people said, kept to himself. When police searched the hut, they found more than just the watch. They found rope, a shovel, dried blood on the floorboards, and a journal. The journal didn't belong to Ezra. It belonged to a man named Marcus Lane, one of the men who'd disappeared back in 2004. The entries were frantic, desperate. He wrote about being threatened, about men showing up at his door in the middle of the night, about being told his marriage was a curse and that he needed to leave, or else. The final entry was dated 2 days before he vanished. It said, "They're coming for me tonight. If anyone finds this, tell my family I tried. I tried to protect her." Ezra Cole was arrested. At first, he said nothing, just sat in the interrogation room, staring at the wall. But after hours of pressure, he finally spoke. He said, "We were protecting the village." The detective asked, "Protecting it from what?" Ezra said, "From contamination, from men who didn't respect our ways." He admitted that a group of elders, 5 men total, had been enforcing the marriage rule for decades. If a man married a woman they believed was impure, they would scare him, threaten him, and if he didn't leave, they would make him disappear. "How many men?" the detective asked. Ezra looked down. He said, "I don't know. Maybe 6, maybe more." Daniel was just the most recent. But here's the thing. Ezra swore he didn't kill anyone. He said, "We scared them. We took them into the woods. We told them to leave and never come back. Most of them did. But Daniel," Ezra's voice cracked. He said, "Daniel wouldn't leave. He kept saying he loved her, that he wasn't afraid. So we locked him in the hut, just for a night, to make him think. But when we came back the next morning, he was gone." The investigators didn't believe him. They tore apart that clearing, searched for graves, brought in ground-penetrating radar. They found nothing. No body, no bones, no evidence that Daniel had been killed. So where did he go? Ezra said he didn't know. He said the hut wasn't locked from the outside. Daniel could have escaped, could have run deeper into the woods, could have gotten lost, or he could have made it out and decided never to come back. The case went to trial. Ezra and 2 other elders were charged with kidnapping, assault, and conspiracy. The other 2 men had died years earlier. The trial lasted 4 months. Lila testified. She cried on the stand. She said, "I loved him. I never wanted any of this. I just wanted a normal life." The jury found the men guilty. Ezra Cole was sentenced to 18 years. The other elder, 12. But Daniel Hart was never found. 45-0, 55-0. Final twist? Resolution. 10 months after the trial ended, a hiker in West Virginia found something strange. A metal box buried under a pile of rocks, about 60 miles from Ashford Hollow. Inside the box was a journal. The handwriting matched Daniel Hart's. The entry started the night he disappeared. He wrote, "I got out. I ran until my lungs burned. I didn't stop until the sun came up. I don't know where I am. I don't know if they're still following me." He wrote about hiding in abandoned barns, stealing food from gas stations, sleeping in the woods because he was too afraid to go to the police. He wrote, "If I go back, they'll finish what they started. And Lila, I don't know if she was part of it. I don't know who to trust." The final entry was dated 3 weeks after his disappearance. It said, "I think I'm safe now. I'm heading west. I'll start over. I'll use a different name. Maybe one day I'll come back for her. Maybe." The journal ended there. No forwarding address. No phone number. Nothing. The FBI launched a search based on the journal. They checked missing persons reports, homeless shelters, hospitals. They found nothing. No one matching Daniel's description had used his social security number. No bank activity. No credit cards. It was as if he'd vanished all over again. Some people believe Daniel is still out there, living under a new identity, too scared to ever come forward. Others think he died in the woods, and the journal was just a desperate attempt to leave something behind. His family doesn't know what to believe. His mother still keeps his room exactly the way he left it. His sister posts on social media every year on his birthday, asking if anyone has seen him. But there's been no sign, no sighting, no closure. Lila left Ashford Hollow 6 months after the trial. No one knows where she went. Some say she moved to California. Others say she's in Canada. A few believe she's still in Appalachia, living under a different name, just like Daniel might be. The village of Ashford Hollow still exists. The population has dropped. Younger people have left. The church is half empty on Sundays. The rule about marrying a virgin, officially, it's gone. But people say some of the older families still whisper it, still believe it, still pass it down, because traditions don't die when you want them to. They die when people stop being afraid. And in Ashford Hollow, fear still lives in the woods. It still lives in the silence. It still lives in the question no one can answer. What happened to Daniel Hart? Was he a victim of a violent tradition? Or did he escape and choose to disappear? Was Lila innocent? Or did she know more than she ever let on? And are there other men, in other villages, in other hidden corners of this country, who've been erased for breaking rules we don't even know exist? 55-0, 60-0. Engagement CTA plus strong close. What do you think happened to Daniel? Do you believe he's out there, living a new life, under a new name? Or do you think he never made it out of those woods? Drop your theory in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know what you think. Because this story, this case, it's not just about one man. It's about how far people will go to protect tradition, how fear can control an entire community, and how love, real love, can put you in danger when you least expect it. If this story shook you, wait until you hear about the mountain village where no one is allowed to leave after sunset. A place where the rules are even darker, and the consequences even worse. That story is coming next. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And if you made it this far, comment, "I'm still here." Let me know you're keeping up with every twist. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay safe, and remember, some places have rules for a reason, even if that reason is something no one wants to say out loud.